anyway, welcome and hope everybody had some great holidays. So we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. I guess you're taking care of the roll call there. And we'll wait for you to get done and do the introduction on Ronnie. One of you going to do that?
The introduction of Ronnie? Yes, I can do that. Okay. Ronnie Manus is our new Senior Services Manager. We were thinking that Ronnie wasn't going to be able to start until actually next Monday. And Ronnie called me and said, what do you think about the 27th of December? And I was like, no, we don't want you here. Yeah, right. So Ronnie was kind enough to start on the 27th and has hit the ground running. And Ronnie, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, very excited to be here. We've had great support from the entire team here, just to make sure that I get settled in. I'm learning a lot of logistics to my role, how we operate here as a team, as a facility, and so a lot of learning, a lot of processing, a lot of digesting, and very thankful for the team I have in that learning process for sure. So I am very thankful that I have been able to start earlier than my anticipated January 9th date. Allows me to just get a feel of what it is we're doing here and how I could best support. And I was really itching for that one. So January 9th seemed a long ways away, and I'm glad I was able to get him before that. So very excited to be here. Very thankful for this opportunity, and I look forward to working with you as a board to support our community. So thank you.
Great. Welcome.
Thank you.
Could we also go around?
That's what I was going to suggest. I know you won't probably remember on this. Well, probably can't. He's a lot younger than all of us, or most of us. But if we can go around and introduce ourselves, and we start.
I'm Beth Bowles, and I'm glad to be here with all of you. This is my first board meeting, and I've been a peer volunteer. I guess we're called peer support volunteers. It used to be peer counselor, and I've been in that role for about 3 years. And I just am here because it was presented, and I decided it was something I could do. So I hope I'm helpful.
Great, thanks, Beth.
I'm Janine Perrin. I'm in my second 3-year term on the board, so I'm the last of the old guys. And I volunteer here at the Senior Center as resource manager. And welcome, and glad you're here, honey.
Hi, I'm Julie Hauser. I have been on the board for 2 years. I'm starting my 3rd year. I also am with the Longmont Symphony Guild. I'm the president of that. Okay, everybody? And I got involved. I'm a real estate agent as well, but I got involved just because of the fact that, my mom is a senior, and I am now considered a senior at 55 and represent the youngest, level of seniors in our community. And I thought it would be important to sort of figure out how we can create a senior center that appeals to the younger generation and the older generations of the seniors. So that's why I'm here.
Hi, Ronnie. I am Marsha Martin. I am the city council liaison to this board, so I don't get a vote, so you won't be offended when I abstain from everything, except I never keep my mouth shut, so I talk just as much as anyone else on the board. And I just want you to know that whenever I talk about the senior center and this board, I always say, thank you. I always say that this is the most effective board that I have ever sat on as liaison, and also the most effective institution in the city in terms of fulfilling its mission. So you and me have a high bar to keep jumping over. And welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry I'm late.
That's okay.
And, I'm Mark Quintana, and we met before yet, and, I've been on the board for, this is starting my 5th year now, and, worked with the school district, retired, and came here.
I'm Dave Grunna. Where are you from?
Born and raised, Denver, South Denver.
South Denver?
Yeah, so
Oh, okay.
Denver and Colorado native.
I'm
Whoa.
always interested. I am probably the oldest one on the board, I think. I bet on it. That gives me no particular claim, I guess, but I've been retired a long time. My particular interest is on this board are sustainability issues. I'm liaison to the Sustainability Coalition. And I also attend, I'm not a member, not a voting member on anything, but I also attend the Sustainability Advisory Board to try to keep myself up to date. To the extent of what kinds of issues are going on with those groups that would impact seniors in the community. And so I try to report that back. And so that's where I'm at.
I'm Ruth Ellis. This is my 2nd year, and I have learned so much since I have been on this board about what goes on in Boulder County with services available to adults. It's amazing. So I'm really glad to be here. I have senior family members who don't live in Boulder County, and what a hassle it is to get services for them. So I have really, really appreciated everything that goes on here. And the senior center has just been a life link for me when I moved here. You will find out that one of my less than positive things to say about what goes on is the registration process for classes and programs here. It's really difficult to use our registration system. More about that later.
Well, it's nice to meet all of you.
And then I also want to introduce Christina Pacheco. Christina has been with the city for many years.
23.
But was just recently named the Director of Human Services. Christina will be overseeing senior services as a part of her duties, so. Christina,
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and excited to work closely with Ronnie and the team, and yeah, just excited to be taking on this new challenge. So
Welcome,
thank you.
both of you. We talked about you at the Latina Coalition.
Oh,
meeting
you
the
did.
other day.
Hopefully it was good.
Oh, you know
Just
that.
kidding.
You know that board there.
Thank
It was
you.
all good. We
Thank you.
really
Appreciate
needed
it.
to hear that. Okay. Now, election of chair. Anybody would like to nominate someone for that position? Any?
Who is the current chair?
She would be cut off the board at the end of
Susan
December.
was,
Oh.
and she ended her term and didn't re-up.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Julie, would you consider it?
I don't think I can. Yeah, unfortunately, I just feel like I have too much going on already with work and my other presidency.
And I feel that's kind of one of my concerns too. I don't know if either one of you are interested. Dave, would you have interest? You do a good job of keeping us
Awake?
awake, keeping us alert about what's going on. You're good at checking into things, researching things, etc. I just think you'd be great also. Dave or Ruth, either one.
What's that?
Either one of you two.
You want to do it?
is there anyone that would
Yeah.
volunteer?
Are there any-
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
But we're trying to talk them into
We're
it as we
just
go around.
I nominate Sheila.
That is so unfair, because she already nominated you. Are you getting even?
Sheila's out of the country.
Right.
So she had sent that email.
Okay.
Oh, gosh, you know, I said that I was absolutely not gonna do that. I got a full plate, I really do. Let me ask, what does the president do other than conduct meetings?
They also meet with staff to set the agenda. And we generally, the only other thing outside of this meeting, and I don't know what Ronnie will do in the future, but Susan and I, the last couple of months, would meet and have a pre-conversation about the agenda. But beyond that, it really isn't a lot outside of running the meeting. And I will be around as long as whoever wants to do that to support them in starting to feel more comfortable, and then Ronnie will take over that as he feels comfortable.
Well, let me make a campaign speech.
Well, I think you got it.
Yeah. We don't have to convince him.
Yeah, this is not going the way I figured this morning. See, most boards that I've been on a lot of boards and committees and stuff over the years. What I'd like to see in a board is something that has different projects that they grab onto, and they work on, and they make recommendations, and they're implemented. Now, this is an advisory board, I understand that. We could make advice, we could give advice all day long, and there's no particular reason you have to follow it. But on the other hand, I do think that for a board to be valuable, they need to make recommendations to the management that are worthwhile and that would be followed, you know. And so if I did that, I'd be approaching it from that perspective, not just, you know, conducting a meeting. And I do have some limits on my time. I'm just blathering now, but I just volunteered. I was telling Janine a little earlier, I just volunteered for to be on the architectural committee for our HOA, which I don't particularly care about that, except that we can. I want to use that as a platform to develop some sustainability issues within the HOA, and maybe that could grow into a sustainability issue, which I see is taking a lot of time. So that's why I'm dragging my feet. So
I'll nominate Dave for president of the senior board.
Well, I'm gonna come to Dave's rescue and say, you know, it's not horrendously time consuming, and truly, for those who don't know, I did it for a couple of years, and what I know about myself is that I am fairly straightforward, and that people with better skills, management skills, would probably be better in this position, which Dave is absolutely qualified for in every way. But I also understand, because we're neighbors and we're friends, and I brought him into this, so I'm trying to save him from being talked into doing something that he really is limited in time and may not want to do. And personally, I feel like that should be a consideration, because everybody feels guilty when they say no, you know. And I just because I'm an outspoken person, am gonna say that.
So you weren't offering yourself up.
Oh,
You were just saying it's okay for him to say no.
Brenda, you remember when I did that. Marcia, you remember when I
I thought you
For 2
did a
years.
great
Yes,
job,
so
and
did
I
I.
was surprised. I thought the only reason you weren't under discussion was because you'd already done your time.
Well, I had done my time, but I just feel like I'm so outspoken that this board needs a little gentler soul than me, you know?
I don't know about that.
So I would like to say something to both of you then, all right? Because Dave, I think you put your hammer right on the nail where this board is the weakest. You know, I just said what a great board I think this is, and the reason I think it's great is because you have all this outreach into other related functions in the county, and you know, that's wonderful that you bring back all of that know-how in. The weak point is that the board has recommended very little to the council, and I just want to say that at least in my book, that is one of the best ways to move council, is to have an advisory board make an actual concrete recommendation, whether it's a policy change or an operational change, which we really don't control, but it still, you know, makes the point. So I would love to see Dave do that. I also thought, Janine, that you were a really strong president and did a great job.
Thank you.
So vote with a clear conscience, guys, but either of these two people would be
Yeah,
great.
I agree.
Well, is there anybody that wants it? Okay. That was quick. All right.
And Dave, I would support you in that effort in any way I could.
Okay. All right. Okay.
All right, I will too. I'll do whatever you want to do.
Okay.
I'll even go to city council meetings.
All right.
So do we need a second for that motion? Okay, I motion Dave, second it. All in favor? Aye. Okay, now, here, the next thing on the agenda is the vice president.
All right. See, you've already agreed to be vice chair, right? You'll be vice chair?
Well, I've been that, but if no one else is interested,
Well,
I'd be glad
okay,
to do it.
All
So
right,
it's-
I'll entertain
I
a
know.
motion for vice chair.
Do you need a second for that? or-
No,
It's done.
we don't have a motion yet, so,
Oh.
okay.
Oh.
Well, if there's no, my Robert's Rules of Order are a little rusty, but, if you're volunteering to be vice chair, so would someone make a motion that we, elect?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I second.
Second, all right. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
I,
Any opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you, we'll work together.
Election of the secretary. All right, does anybody want to be secretary? Does anybody want to make a motion to be secretary? It's a tough job.
And that's the worst.
Ruth,
We'll do it.
Who's that?
I nominate Ruth.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
There are
All
many
right, a second,
seconds.
Ruth has a second.
Okay.
And so you can start taking notes right now.
I got a pen.
Looks
All right.
like Jeff's doing a good job over here.
Okay. All right, so far, so
Yeah.
any discussion of the nomination for secretary? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
I,
Any opposed?
Can I ask who made the motion and?
I made the
second?
motion.
Julie made the motion,
And the second?
and the second was, who was the second?
Wasn't it
On
Janine?
who? On the vice
Yeah,
president?
Yeah.
On the secretary.
Oh, I
It
don't
was
know. Jenny.
Okay,
I was
All
good
right.
until there.
okay, so we got a new board. Recognize the new board member, and that would be Beth. And anything further you'd like to say, Beth? You've already introduced yourself, but we're glad to have you.
I'm glad I didn't volunteer for anything.
It was only a matter of time.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to
Yeah,
say
yeah.
something at one point.
That's still, you still have an opportunity later.
No, I'm
Yeah,
fine,
yeah.
thank you. I'm fine. Fine.
Okay, I know what it's like to have that happen to you. All right, introductions and welcome. I guess we've done all of that, is that right? Public to be invited to be heard, 3 minutes to a person. Is there any public here to be heard? Hearing none, we'll go to the old business, which is discussion of library, recreation, and culture tax proposal, outreach and communication.
We need to do the
Approve
minutes.
the minutes.
Oh, sorry, where are the minutes?
Number 4.
Oh, I missed them, sorry.
Okay.
And I apologize, Prudence sent those in a different format this time, so if you're not comfortable approving them that way, I will take and put them in the normal format if you're more comfortable with that.
What's the normal format?
She's
Just a Word document.
Just
It
a
was a
Word
Word.
document, not in a.
Paragraph by paragraph, so.
I really liked this. It was very clear.
It
So
was
did I.
concise,
Yeah.
laid out, I could glean it
Yes,
quickly.
it wasn't just reading.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Okay. I don't mind the format, I like a little more detail. It was pretty brief, but format's fine. All right, are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Anybody make a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion.
Julie? Okay. A second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved without correction. All right. Now, we can go to old business. Okay, on to the discussion, would that be you?
Do you wanna lead this, Marcia, or do you want me to?
I can't see the agenda and I didn't,
So,
Oh,
at last month's meeting,
that.
yes,
yes,
okay.
okay. So there's a bunch of stuff about that. I'd like to start by summarizing the council presented a list of public amenities that there's no money to invest in them now. And the council wants to consider a ballot question for the fall that will fund some of these things. It could be one ballot question or 2 ballot questions, because Colorado has a log rolling statute, which means that unrelated things can't be in the same funding ballot question. So we can't put the library and the recreation center together. There are some, the definition of related is somewhat squishy. So I have just, for example, been having conversations, the Boulder Public Library, for example, has not a huge theater, but a fairly substantial theater. So it might be that the library and theater, as they're both culture and knowledge, could be lumped into one ballot question, and then some or all of the recreational, things could be lumped into another one, so you could have, in essence, mind and body, as it were, as 2 ballot questions. The other thing that you would want to know is that to fund everything on that list, both a reasonable amount of capital investment and enough tax that would continue to provide operational support, would be $250 million of funded stuff. And that is depending on how it's broken down, that's significant tax increases. And Jeff probably, I bet you have the numbers with you.
I do.
Yeah, and so if anybody wants to know, we'll go into them. So there's a number of approaches that can be taken. One is to prioritize things off the list. Another is to do some this year and some next year or 2 years from now. And then the other thing that's being considered is, what we really want is a progressive tax, like income taxes used to be in this, the Eisenhower era, where, people who had very high incomes paid a lot and people who had low incomes paid very little. Our taxation system, our federal taxation system isn't so much like that anymore. But all the tools in our toolbox are sales taxes and property taxes. Well, property taxes tend to be progressive in that, if you have more money, you probably have a house with a higher value. Sales taxes are truly regressive. They fall the hardest on the poor. But there are kind of exceptions to that rule on both sides. So, for example, Longmont has visitors and hopes to have more visitors, and some of these things are meant to attract more visitors from outside the city limits. And so that means sales taxes are good because people who aren't from Longmont pay them. And in fact, the data that we have, it says that we already, because of our big box stores, that's why Longmont didn't suffer during the pandemic in terms of city revenue, because we had a huge draw from outside the area, people coming to shop in our big box stores, and now we're about to get a Costco opening this spring, which will be right in the middle of that draw area, and it's very accessible to drive to from almost anywhere. So that tends to lead things towards sales taxes because it means that those other guys are paying for it. So, one of the things that we're looking at is whether the proportion of this that would be funded by a mill levy and the proportion of it that would be funded by sales tax. And then I guess that's the background that I'd like to lay, and that again, it falls into several big categories. There is a branch library. There is a number of recreational things, because we probably should have at least one more and probably two more rec centers the size of the one that we have. Dry Creek Park has been hanging fire forever, and it was the most concretely promised locale for a new rec center. And then all of our swimming pools are falling apart, so we need, to upgrade or replace at least Centennial Pool, which is really falling apart. And then we have some opportunities for new outdoor amenities on city-owned land. So I think those are the three categories. Some are, and a Center for the Performing Arts, which is near and dear to my heart, by the way, just so that you will know that I'm prejudiced on this, because I think it's a matter of social equity. If you are working age and have children and are earning good money, and each parent has either 0 or 1 job, then you can go down to the Denver Center of Performing Arts or Fiddler's Green or whatever your genre is, basically anytime you want. And you can have your kids in regional hockey leagues or regional swim teams as much as you want, because you don't have any extra stuff to do, so you can cart your kids all around. You can indulge your own personal taste for culture. But for middle class and down, and also for seniors, just because it's so difficult to attend those things, the only way to go there is driving. Parking is horrible, whether it's Mackey Auditorium in Boulder or Denver Center for Performing Arts or the amphitheaters, are just a major investment of a day to get there. So, except for the privileged, the extraordinarily abled, those aren't available to us. But for our children and our seniors, they'd be so much more accessible if they were here. So that, that's my argument for that, because it doesn't really, it doesn't necessarily fit with the others, although it could kind of get in with a library. But and that's really true of all these amenities. Longmont got behind because of the flood. We had to put all our efforts into just putting ourselves back together. It's been a decade and we're finally on the very last leg of that with the bond issue that just passed last election. And so this is where we start catching up. So it's a really important question and
I have a question. It's really, the information you shared was really interesting. How does it relate to the Senior Advisory Board?
Well, as Dave just pointed out, the board has the capability that it has not necessarily used that much to make recommendations to council.
For these facilities?
Yeah, for in particular for the prioritization. And then the other thing is that and correct me if I'm wrong on the timeline here, Jeff, but usually this kind of outreach begins around Cinco de Mayo, being the first outdoor public event that we have. The city will begin an outreach effort, talking to the people, holding focus groups, holding lotteries at the outdoor events. I hope we do a lot more than we have in the past in terms of really intelligent outreach and educating people. But anyway, it starts this spring. And so what we want to do is understand what the public's priorities are and what would be the most used and what they miss the most and where the inequities really lie. And so as a group that, among other things, represents a demographic stratum of this community, the senior population, excuse me, Julie, I wave my arms when I get passionate. One of your roles is to tell us what you think and why. So the discussion is, first, what do we think about this? And second, what are we going to do about it? And that can be from what kind of outreach can we do to our demographic, to do we want to move the needle? Do we want to raise awareness of this process and maybe try to move the needle in terms of what we think would be the most important thing to support our community? So if that, does that answer your question?
Somewhat.
We've got a blank slate here.
Can I jump in there?
Yeah.
Somewhat.
So in addition to the rec center, there would be programming space specific to seniors. The senior center will always be the hub, but one of the challenges that we have here is not enough space. And so what we have proposed is adding multiple meeting or programming space so that we're not putting all our eggs in one basket. It would also serve another area of the community. And then again, it wouldn't be another senior center, but it would be programming space like you have here in the senior center right now with D&E and the room we're in, so that some things could happen there as well as here. Okay. So that's I think that hopefully that answers your question of what does the senior services get out of this?
Janine?
Well, I know I can speak for the community that I choose to represent on this board. And all of these things I agree are needed.
Mm-hmm.
I also am aware of the fact that people, especially in the community that I represent, are overwhelmed right now with trying to purchase food, number one, pay their utility bills, that is 2.5 times what it was last month, this month, and gas and just expenses. And if you're going to reach out to the community to pass taxes and bonds for things, that you please focus on one thing at a time, because my community is overwhelmed with affording to live day by day. And I would like that to be a consideration, and it would be, because
It's a vote.
my community also votes.
Right, and that's right, you know, if we can't, but if we could put all $250 million worth of debt, guarantee you, it would just fail. No one would vote for that. So, you know, all of those things. So Janine started out exactly right. That's one viewpoint, and it's certainly, like, everybody knows we can't pass $250 million in new debt. We're just not that much of a city right now. And so everybody gets an opinion, and everybody gets you know, we can define a strategy about how to provide the most informed opinion for our demographic.
Right, yeah.
And excuse me. And so that's the discussion, and I'm going to start keeping my mouth shut.
I think, you know, I think that considering all of everything that's been spoken here, is that really what I think our duty is as a board is to decide what piece of that is the most important for the senior community, and how do we present that to the city council,
Good point.
right? And then see if we can, like you said, you know, push the city council to see our point of view and maybe raise the bar and get things done for us.
Yeah. Very good point. Any other questions for Marcia?
I just wanted to mention that in, God, his name completely escaped me. The cultural facility question has been around for a long time. And Dr. the sculptor, the plastic surgeon, he was very involved. Schmidt, thank you. He and the people that were trying to raise money and get, I don't know if they did a study or not back then. That was a while back, quite a while back. And there wasn't the support that was needed. And I think, do you know about the history of that, Marcia?
I don't know all of the history.
I think it's really important to research that.
Yeah, what I do know is that in the last, well, it was finished about the time we locked down for the pandemic. There was a big feasibility study that was funded by a combination of the city, Visit Longmont, the economic development, the downtown development, and the arts community for a bigger chunk than anybody else. But so that study was a partnership funding, and I have that. I can make sure that everybody has a link to it. But you know, it can be read. So yeah, that is a question of it's a question of whether the public would vote for it. Now, we never know what the public is going to do. We had a really beautiful, large-scale rec center with pool and ice, and for a number of reasons, it failed on the ballot measure. It was all by itself, just one rec center. And what we kind of found out was that, first of all, a lot of people voted no because the city wouldn't promise what neighborhood it would be in. A lot of people voted no because the way it was messaged made people think that it was only for the sports teams and the high schools and everything else, and it wasn't a public rec center, which was false, completely false. But a lot of people believed that, and a lot of people still believe that. And then I think a lot of people that don't want growth in the city leveraged all that and actively opposed building the thing at all. So it failed, and that kind of, it was kind of a surprise, because usually we think people really want physical recreation facilities. So yeah, it's a hard problem.
To follow up on Julie's point, timeline, you probably said, and I didn't get it, but what are we talking about as far as getting some sort of recommendation to the council?
Well,
To our slice of the population, this is what they would like.
yeah, I didn't really give a very close timeline. It would go like this. The city outreach does start in about spring usually, and we could probably come forth with a recommendation from this board anytime over the summer. Does that feel right to you, Jeff?
Yeah, maybe early summer.
Okay, because I hope the city isn't going to have its thumb on the scale. I mean, I want a thumb on the scale, but that's me. That's not the city. So I hope that the city's outreach will not necessarily be influenced by the recommendation of this board. The council's decision, which will be made in August, is that right? Because we have to refer the ballot measure.
I think that might have to happen in July, because I think in August you have to set what is on the ballot in November.
Okay. All right. We should. Yeah. I thought we'd referred things in August before, because it's the end of August.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But yeah, we don't have a whole lot of time. So this would be the board's first project if we decided to do some outreach work. And either I or Jeff can actually verify what the preferred timeline.
Now,
Would
it's that.
Would it be helpful for this advisory board, for the senior center, since the people that participate in the programs here are the most active people that would possibly utilize all of these things. So I don't think it would entail a lot to have a survey from now until, with our participants, just a simple survey, and maybe pass them out in classes, maybe, to find out what they feel.
Who put,
That would be a good representative group.
who put the monthly in-person surveys on the agenda?
That was me,
Okay.
based on last month's conversation.
Okay, I was just, maybe we can follow up on her point.
Oh,
I
I'm sorry,
will,
I didn't
I
even see
will,
that.
so
You're fine.
this survey is different,
Yeah.
that's on the agenda than what you're
I want
referring to.
our audience
Yeah.
to be able to give us an indication, not just the board, but our audience.
Yeah, I would agree, and the city marketing team is working on that survey, so that what you as a board and the users of the senior center will get the same survey as what is provided to the rest of the community.
Well, except that the city's marketing team survey does not have to be the only survey.
Right. Yeah.
So if we had decided that a different outreach method, or the way of looking, work through Meals on Wheels, because we need to look at unserved and underserved communities as well as the active. I mean, being active in your 70s and 80s is a privilege all its own. And not
But you
all
have
of
to
us
be
have
active
that.
to utilize all of those proposals.
Well, but yes and no, depending on how because every amenity is a service, so it could be designed to involve people,
Right.
just like the senior center is.
And I think that's sort of the point, is that maybe there would be more people who would utilize the space if it was built to accommodate them and it was there. Like maybe because the senior center is so far away from Longmont, right? That people don't wanna take the trek in to get here, right? So if we had something that was closer to them, maybe they would utilize it.
Transportation is the issue.
It's
A lot of
terrible,
people
yeah.
don't wanna go out.
Yeah,
Art,
The thing that's very important is the education, informing of people, and, I don't feel that everybody is being, and there's no way you can inform everybody, but I think we need to let people know what's going on, and, we use the technology, we use the news media and stuff like that, but I guess I'm looking at one thing that the majority of the people in the city of Brighton get is a utility bill, correct? And I was just wondering, and I don't know if we can recommend it, or if that would be something that would be educational or not, but that we have a page added to the mayor's notes and the other activities going on that would deal specifically with, something like this. I don't know if that is possible, or I don't know what it takes, or who decides what's gonna go on that, what do you call that?
The
The-
marketing team, yeah,
What is
the
it?
marketing team.
Yeah, city
Yeah.
line.
City line.
Or a link in the newsletter.
And the answer is, by the way, that I think that the city line is fixed in size, but the content is fungible. So if we wanted an article, and this probably is shared with city marketing, but we would, make recommendations for what it should say, or that it exists at all. It could be a candidate, for May, or even April, or even June, to go in there. It also, we have the GO. And again, it's, how will the ballot questions, what's being considered, and, what each one would mean.
Janine?
I'm thinking that politicians campaign, and that it makes sense to me that if we need to prioritize these in the community in general, and we want people's input, we need to actively campaign by going to where they go, like Cinco de Mayo celebrations, by having campaigning or information tables, or people collecting that information from the community, where the community is meeting for whatever they're meeting for. And that might give us a better idea, because I love the GO, but most of the people I represent either don't read it or don't get it or whatever, whereas this is about the entire community of which we are a segment. So
I've got one more question, related to this. In the, feasibility study that was done, did they give the city an indication or specific details about other 100,000 people cities, population cities, what their facilities are?
Yes, and I can send you the study. It's pretty long.
I just would be interested in the answer to that question,
How long?
actually.
It's 70 pages.
Yeah, I'll send the link out to that, to the PowerPoint that was shared with, council as well.
Is it broken down into so I could dig into it easily?
Yeah, it's pretty accessible. If you study the table of contents, you can tell what to skip.
Yeah.
But it's good on objectives and things like that. I also have a short concordance, because of things that I think need to be re-looked at. Stuff changed in the last 2 years, and there are more questions. You know, there's more than one way to skin some of these cats. There's the idea that some of the things that are on this list maybe don't belong on it because they could be funded other ways.
Are you saying you'd send out the, the report or the PowerPoint? Or
He's gonna
Both.
say that, yeah.
Both.
to all the members?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this, oh, Julie.
One of the things that I think is important to tag on to from what Art had said, excuse me, about having some sort of, you know, flyer that goes out with the utility bill. The other thing we need to consider is that there are a lot of people who don't get their utility bill, right? My utility bill comes via email, right? So, and I don't actually pay for it, right? So I don't even look at it. It goes to my husband. So we have to consider that. And I think that one thing that would be really important to look at is that if we decide on something that we're gonna recommend to the city, is then looking at how can we market that, right? Right, to the community, so that they're on board with it. And so that means looking at how do we do it by flyer, paper, by, you know, maybe door knocking, by, you know, email, social media, all of those things, so that we have a complete almost marketing plan of what we're gonna do and how we're gonna approach bringing this issue that we wanna recommend to the city council, make it clear to the community. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it does.
So, if it's all right, I think it would be good that we just have it on our agenda every month.
Okay.
And what staff will do is, as the city staff are meeting about the process, I will report back every month on what's going on, what schedules are, and also share your feedback back to that group as well.
That'd be good. How do you want to proceed? We throw a lot of stuff out here. And I can only handle so much, a little bit at a time. How do we want to proceed on this? I'll just throw out one idea. There's always committees. And I could suggest that maybe 2 or 3 of us meet a time or two before the next meeting and kind of come up with a strategy like you're talking about. This is going to take some work.
Can I throw
Sure,
something out?
sure.
I'm wondering if that strategizing about marketing plans is something that our marketing folks are actually already
Yes.
going to be doing. So it might be recreating the wheel a little bit.
Is there a way to connect the two?
Well,
So
could we-
let's say if we have a committee, then
Yeah.
meet
Your-
with someone at
your
the
staff
city so
could be
that we
part of
know.
that.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
I-
Marcia.
I just want to say, forming committees, the committee has to either have meetings posted on its own, which you
Oh.
can do by
Yeah.
going to Dawn or, anybody in the city clerk's office can handle that for us. Or if it's 2 people on a committee, you can do whatever you want. But we can't have, we can't have 3 or 4 people
Open
meeting
meetings,
separately
so-
because of open meetings. And the other thing again, I wouldn't personally worry about reinventing the wheel because the whole city is one demographic. The senior demographic is another demographic that will not get the same consideration from the whole city. So, so having this board make recommendations, maybe it gets rolled into the city's marketing campaign, or maybe it is something, it takes some other form.
Right.
What I heard Julie talking about is that there's no one place to message.
I would suggest that we give the committee a chance to meet, the city staff committee. I then can report back at early February, which then can better inform the board of maybe what your next steps are.
Yeah, I mean, because if we feel like if the committee meets with the city marketing to find out, what is just what's the you know, the steps,
Yeah.
you know, that they're thinking. And then if there's something that we feel like as a group isn't addressed, then maybe we can bring it back to the marketing.
So do they meet on a monthly basis?
Well, we haven't met for quite a while, and I will just share this. I also go to the Park and Rec Advisory Board, and I also go to the Library Board, and they're having these same conversations that you all are having, and we need to start reporting information back to you so you can help the bigger cause, and the clock is ticking, and we need to get moving on that. I'm talking about city staff, not you all.
All the meetings we're talking about so far though with these staff,
So far, yes, to
So
develop a plan.
your marketing committee,
It's the same group.
same,
talking
same,
about-
okay, one and the same, okay.
Can I verify something because I'm a little bit confused? So one of the recommendations that they want from this board would be prioritizing these in terms of taxing. Because if it's priority, that's something we can discuss and say, you know, library, rec, culture, assuming that not everything's gonna be proposed at the same tax, you know, at the same tax request. So the first step is, what would our priorities be?
Yeah, priorities,
So,
I think, again, there's two real questions. In terms of property taxes, you know, the real exception to the property tax thing, you know, if you are a doctor and a lawyer who are married to each other and you live in Rainbow Ridge, you probably don't even look at your top property tax bill, even though it's huge. But if you are either a widower or even an older couple but retired on a fixed income and you live in a really nice house, but you're on a fixed income, your property tax may suddenly be a significant piece of your budget. And so those are people who might be harmed by a property tax increase. So, you know, those are things that this demographic could weigh in on. Because on the other hand, if you are a well-established resident, sales taxes may not mean so much because you've got all your stuff. You know, your purchases, except for things like food, are very discretionary. You know, like I don't care that this shirt is 7 years old, right? And you know, so I don't buy a lot of clothes, and so sales tax isn't as big a deal.
Okay, so I wanna make sure I'm tracking here. The end point of all of this is the ballot measure,
Yes.
which would be in November.
But it has to,
But
but it
the
has to be
recommendation,
referred in
Yeah.
August.
Marcia, I just wanna bring up one more thing. The thing that comes to mind during this whole discussion is fundraising. A lot of these things to me are special interest items. And I would love to know if the money that was spent on the feasibility study included how those things were funded for cities that were 100,000 population.
There is some information in that, not as much as necessarily could have been provided. So one thing that's in there, you sound like you've read it with a magnifying glass, Julie.
I haven't read it with a magnifying glass, but I have read it.
Did you see that, Julie?
The feasibility study?
Did you see what I'm looking for?
I think like Marcia said, I feel like there's a little bit, but
Probably
not.
not a lot.
So
A
for
lot.
example, there's a table that says whether each facility is operating at a profit or at a loss, and to what extent it is subsidized by the municipality surrounding it. So, you know, that's a big part of it. How it got to happen was, you know, is different.
That would be nice to know.
It would be nice to know. Also, that's nice to know is that the theater, and I think no other piece of this, is on the staff's list of prioritized things. Most of it are things that the presumption is that would be entirely paid for by this tax. On the other hand, the theater arts complex is not entirely paid for by this tax. And so there is a presumption of private investment, including both donations and donations or investors in the sense of builders who would get something out of it, although it just never expected to operate as a profit. But so yes, and one thing that is recommendations like that, I wouldn't expect these to necessarily come from the board. But if so like, if you've been on the water board or something, Union Reservoir probably doesn't need to be funded by this because it could be funded other ways, but it's on the list. So, those are things that if we know them, you get a bunch of people who have been conscious for 50 or 60 or 70 years, then who knows what we know, so all bets are off in terms of what we can put into this once we start studying the list. We're a valuable resource just because of who we are.
So the way we go, I think we see from here is wait till February and see where, the report from Jeff, and then decide at that point which what we're going to do.
Ron, do you have any comments you want to make at this point?
I'm just
listening.
I'm just absorbing.
Okay. Well, I've got to go along with that. I've got a suggestion, or we can just wait until the next meeting.
Well, let's hear it.
Well, you're going to be sending out the summary and the PowerPoint. So I would suggest that all of us study that to the extent that you want to. So we're all more up to speed as far as the whole issue, because I certainly don't feel up to speed yet. And I would also like to ask, I do think we need kind of a working group, whether we call it a working group or committee or whatever, but we need.
Sorry.
Okay.
I love it.
Sorry.
Don't you have to pay for that?
No.
How many people would be, you have to post working groups?
Yes.
Well,
Yeah,
if
okay,
they're,
all right.
except if they're two people.
Two people, yeah, okay. Well, we're not gonna be meeting, I'm just saying, at this point, is there anybody, I would like to work on this, is there anybody else that would like to work with me as far as come up with recommendation as our endpoint to get to the ballot measure that we've been talking about? Anybody want to work with me on that? And just kind of be prepared for the next meeting as to, where we go, have some ideas on how we might proceed. That's one way of looking at it, one way to do it.
Well, I would work with you.
Okay, so there's one, okay.
I should not work with you,
No, you
but I
shouldn't.
would be available to answer questions.
Okay.
And I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Okay,
You
so I've
lighted our-
got one going once.
I
We're gonna
would
talk
Okay.
work on it, depending on how much time it's gonna take, I would.
Oh, I shouldn't take more than 30 hours a week.
That's all right. That's as long as it's not full time.
Okay, Janine, Art, anybody else?
Staff will be as
Okay,
involved there as you want us to be.
Okay,
We would like to be a part of those conversations.
oh, absolutely, okay,
So Dave, will you clarify that? Are you looking for people to, because we're all gonna, do our due diligence and read the feasibility study,
Right.
as you said, to, the depth that we would like to.
Yeah.
And then, are you trying to get a group of people to figure out which item we're going to focus on and then pursue it? Or are we all as a group going to decide on what we're gonna focus on?
well, yes and no.
And then,
The way I see it is we need somebody to kind of focus on it, really spend some time on it. And so that's what I'm looking to Art and Janine to do after the February meeting.
I'd
Yeah.
like to ask some of the people I know in my community too. I'd like to just
Sure.
throw that out to them and say,
Absolutely.
what would your thoughts on this
Right,
be?
you know, the more input we can get, the
Yeah.
better. But what I'm thinking then, that we would, after the February meeting, we'll have more feedback, and at that point, I would say, if it seems feasible, we'll appoint a committee, and then we'll come up with the task of coming up with specific recommendations.
So can we come up with a committee after February?
That's what I'm
After
saying.
everybody's,
Yeah, right now, which would probably be the same people that are volunteering right now, is what I'm trying to say. But it doesn't have to be. I
Okay.
mean, whoever wants to at the time, but
Just so we're really clear, is that if the three of you meet, we have to post that.
okay.
And staff can do all that to post it.
You know, that's always a tricky point. Well, what about informal conversations? We're neighbors.
If you two are having a
That's a
conversation,
group of
that,
two.
and you and Art can have a
If we get together, that
conversation.
has to be posted.
But if you three get together to do
That has to be
what I'm
posted.
gonna say, city business, it has to be posted.
Okay, gotcha.
And it should be public.
Yes.
So now sometimes, I mean, that could, seriously, if you do it in the spring, it could be on somebody's big front porch, as long as the location is posted and you don't mind somebody coming and
Yeah.
sitting on the grass and listening.
Yeah.
And somebody needs to take minutes, or you can have recorded on your phone, but there has to be some kind of a record that it happens, if it's three or more.
Okay. And where's it, like, can it be posted like down to the city
Yeah,
center?
that's what you do, you call the city
Yeah.
clerk's office and say,
Yeah.
this is happening.
Yeah, and it also goes
Okay.
on the city
I-
website.
And how much in advance do we have to?
At least 24 hours.
Oh,
Okay.
24, that's.
It's better, since it is a public meeting, to do it further out than that, so that public has the opportunity to show up and know about it.
Right, a week is really nice.
Okay.
Yeah,
You
right.
guys are all so busy, you probably have to schedule that far in advance.
Well, it's a little fuzzy, you know, what we've just been talking about, but I think we need to put some structure to it so we can get started on it. That's all I'm trying to do. But we will keep you informed. I mean, we'll contact you if we.
Okay.
I don't know if there'll be a whole lot of contact between the three of us this next month, but I think the main task is just to kind of become familiar with the report. All right, is everybody okay with that? Okay, I don't think we need a motion for that. All right, any other discussion on this whole issue?
Oh, I would like to just put in context that Johnson report is only about the performing arts, and a public events center, which would not go on the ballot measure at all, even though the study covered both, because that would be privately funded. Okay, so, two warnings about that. Don't expect to see anything about the gym,
Oh,
and,
I was hoping that.
right, and then the other thing is, all the stuff about an events center would be not relevant to the ballot measure. Jeff, you might extract the council communication that gave the list of things to be prioritized.
Okay.
And the other thing is, that wouldn't hurt, is the old pool and ice feasibility study, just so people can see what one looks like. And it's really, it's so old that the money is completely meaningless, and it's, you know, and it having, isn't that a cute trick?
How'd you do that?
My phone's motion sensor, if I turn it completely over, it shuts off the ring. Isn't that a good trick? Yeah. But it, and we probably would not, especially since the school system did decide to build an Olympic-sized pool after our bond issue didn't pass. But at least lets you know what the elements of it are, but it would be a normal pool and probably no ice, or, you know, people could, I mean, that's a requirements thing, you know, the public might have second thoughts, and at Rhythm on the River, you know, they would all say, we want ice, we want ice, that could happen. So it would be useful from a, you know, an idea standpoint, but it's,
It's
you know,
not what
just-
we're proposing to do.
yeah, it's not the current proposal.
Well,
Yeah, and any current proposal might have, the proposal would emphasize things like extra meeting rooms and studios and, you know, things like that, as opposed to this really emphasized, you know, the big stuff. Another thing is that any pool proposal, you know, alarming pool or alarm pool is likely to be a big deal because of our demographic. You know, some of you that have been on for a while discussed that at length, and those who are newer didn't get to hear that discussion, but it's but we lost it at the hospital, and it was a big loss to the community in the minds of our senior population.
any other old business? Hearing none, new business, discuss monthly in-person surveys.
Yeah, that came from the information that David, that you provided as a summary.
Julie and
Yeah.
Aidan.
As a summary, that the possibility of the board doing monthly surveys to interact with those that are using the senior center and to get their feedback of what's working, how it could be improved, or maybe what we need to consider offering.
And I think this can dovetail into an idea that the programming staff had. Char Sloan talked with me about, do we ever have greeters? Do we ever have people like from a board who just volunteer to float the senior center for a couple of hours and greet people? And I said, well, we've done that at particular events,
Open
yes.
house.
Yeah, but not on an ongoing basis. And I thought, oh, could that tie together with this idea of doing surveys? That maybe once a month there's a board member who signs up for a shift to float the building and talk to people as a greeter, and if people want to engage with the survey.
Could it just be a volunteer, not necessarily a board member?
Well, it was the board who were interested in the survey, so that's why
I'm just
Yes, it
curious.
could.
So-
Yeah.
I have another, idea about that. Is it possible to have a station in the front entry that, here's a survey that we'd like to take, these are the questions that we'd like to, and have a big board so that it's engaging, and then maybe people will do the survey on their own instead of having someone
And
there.
instead of handing it out,
Mm-hmm.
discussing the questions with the person and help, not just having a survey handout, but
Yeah.
to discuss it and give feedback back to.
No,
I
but
had a little
sorry.
experience of that, when we did that
Did the
together
survey,
for the open house. I felt like people were more receptive to me greeting them and asking them a question than they were to sitting down and filling out the form. And we have to make it short, couple of questions and get their input that, we can document it, but when you take a piece of paper and a pen and give it to somebody, my experience was they were more resistant to that.
It's a chore.
But they would talk to me in a second, so.
So I feel like if we did like almost sort of a combination of the two, right? Because there are some people that didn't
Yeah.
really want anything to do with it, right? But maybe on their own, volition, they might walk over and say, hey, what's this? And, make some sort of response, but also then have, somebody greeting. However, I will say that it sounds like a lot of people are very busy. And so, that means that every single one of us is going to have to volunteer that time, right? At once a month. Like, well, it's one person a month. It's not, Janine does it every month for the next 6 months, right? So if we're gonna do that, have that kind of a survey, we all have to be willing to participate in that time.
Or involve our volunteer base here at the senior center in assisting with that.
If I'm gonna be here anyway on Tuesday, I don't have a problem with extending another couple of, 2 hours to be a greeter.
Right.
It's fine, I would do that.
Yes. My first impression is that's not a lot of feedback. Now, for example, if you did it once a month, for the next 6 months, 1 day a month, that's not a lot of.
Yeah, for 2 hours,
It's
it's
not
not a
much
lot of people
information,
coming in.
really.
That's why I feel like if you have a station where they can go
To
to,
have a handout.
you know, or we
bulletin board,
have a link to it, to,
something
you know,
like that.
to something that they can go to through the Go. They can go to the link and they
All
can,
right, they must care.
but they have a link that they can go to, so they can do it at their own time at home, something like that.
Can it be both?
Or all of the above, right?
Were you thinking staff involvement also, or just board involvement?
But we really haven't talked a whole lot
Oh,
about it.
okay.
This
Yeah.
was
Oh,
just
just a,
as a
okay,
follow-up
spin-off,
to
okay.
the December meeting. You all can say no if you want, I mean, that,
Yeah.
but it is intriguing, even if it is 2 hours a month. I think if it's in person, the information you gather is gonna be more valuable than if somebody's just filling out a paper survey or even something online. But I would say, and Ronnie, jump in here, that staff would be willing to help as they can. You know,
So-
I think we develop some type of schedule and plug names in and work with the comms team to, if we're just gonna have the computer or paper surveys, work with the comms team to help us develop the best survey that we can ask for or to get. Because if I write the questions, they're gonna be leading. They really know what they're doing, and I'm thinking 3 to 5 questions at the most.
Yeah.
But
3 at the most.
Yeah.
3 at the most,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's better.
Oh, we found that 5 is too much
Mhm.
on the other one. I don't know, does everybody think this some form of survey like, or interview that we've been talking about, everybody think that's a good idea? We should pursue?
I do. I mean, I think that engaging our community to find out what's important to them is really important,
Uh-huh.
right? So that we can then we have the guidance to direct where we're going with how we can advise to them.
And if the board wants it, I'm willing to work to coordinate that. Maybe coordinate that with some volunteers if they're interested. So I know how limited your staff is in terms of demand for their time, but if it's information that I'm doing for the board, I'm happy to be the coordinator.
Scott from the comms team helped us do exactly that. We called it a needs assessment, and it was a little longer than 3 questions, but we had QR codes that people could it's a sign in the front, and we had paper copies as well. And so for people that wanted to use their phone, they could do that, and we got the survey codes right to digitally. And then we had paper for people that didn't want to use their phone. So he was really, really helpful.
How was his response rate?
It was actually pretty good because of the different ways that we did it. And then I think we may have even put it on our social media site, I think. So our goal was 200 parents, 200 kids, and so we set specific, and it was about how we were gonna come back after the pandemic and what kinds of services we needed to provide. And so we set those numbers and then did outreach based on that.
I think we would want to know specifically what the board wants to know from that survey. Like 3 things. Start with 3.
Yeah.
And we can see how it goes.
Okay, you said you'd coordinate it,
Mhm.
so you mean like put together a schedule of who would be, rotated?
Yeah,
on the
and
board?
if we can get volunteers to help. I mean, I appreciate the limited time that the staff at the senior center may have to do that, but I would be able to and willing to do that with the board. And if any of the volunteers would like to be a part of that and help me, I would really appreciate that.
So would you wanna kind of structure it to what would
Well, I wanna know what do we wanna know? What services do we wanna know about prioritizing the tax thing? And what information specifically, with this survey do you wanna know?
And when would this happen?
I think we would need to start after our February meeting.
Well, I think we get the information that you want, bring it to the comms team, ask the comms team, what are some good 3 questions to ask to get this information, and hopefully be able to get that by the February meeting.
Okay.
If you can outline today what it is that you wanna know.
Right.
I don't know.
I think the survey was about the feasibility study and what the recreation, the tax proposal.
Are we conflating the two?
Yes, last month y'all were talking about wanting to do sort of ongoing surveying of customers here about their experience here and what they needed.
Right.
So that's what this was
What we're
about.
talking about.
Services, satisfaction, I'm trying to kind of categorize it.
Barriers.
Okay. Well, we
So
know the
what's the
big
name
one.
of this survey we're talking about?
This is,
Do you have the survey?
I do.
before?
Oh,
Okay.
I have to find it.
Not
Let
Ruth.
me look for it.
This is, we're talking about the monthly surveys now as
Yeah.
opposed
Yeah.
to
Monthly
outreach
survey.
about
Let
the
me look
tax.
for it.
Right.
all right.
And I think,
Versus outreach.
I think when we're generating these questions and
Well-
identifying the approach we wanna take, I think we need to be mindful of, as you mentioned, what information do we want to collect, right? Cause both proposed methods provide qualitative data and quantitative data. And, the qualitative data gives us those specifics, the conversations, we're taking notes, we're collecting that information. As for the quantitative data, that's ranking our services on a scale of 1 to 5, right? It gives us the information we need on the services we're providing, but not the specifics, right? It's given us areas of improvement, identifying the things we're doing well, but as for the specifics, the qualitative data, that gives us I like this, however, we need these improvements. I would like to see more of this. So knowing what information we want will help us shape those questions, and I think that can help us identify our delivery methods, right? If it's that quantitative piece, that's more of those online surveys. We can have computers set up, as mentioned, as station, computer options, checklists. Here's our 3 questions. Rate us in these categories, or if we want somebody floating around, right, asking these questions, recording those notes. That gives us, again, gives us 2 different sources of information of the services we're providing. So once we identify those specifics, I think then we look at our delivery methods from there.
I mean, there'll be some obstacles, like you're doing an informal thing, people coming in. They're coming in for classes, they're on a timeline.
Right.
So we're gonna have to kind of look at that and see what works, and it isn't like just posting somebody at the door to ask questions, because their agenda is gonna be number 1. And then their willingness to participate, so we'll have to feel it out, we'll have to see what works.
Do we do anything at the end of each? So when I register for a certain activity,
Well, I'm thinking that
we streamline it into the program. So once it concludes, then we're just
the
rating
focus,
it off of that experience. And
I mean, we have from time to time, but
Right.
not systemically.
right.
I think a qualitative approach is probably where we wanna go right now, rather than a quantitative. I understand what you're saying about a quantitative approach,
Right.
but it seems to me we wanna focus on the qualitative one at the beginning, and maybe later we can submit it to some kind of quantitative.
Ours was more qualitative, and I'll send a copy to Jeff and to Ronnie, and then you all can share it with the group.
I think that provides more voice, and that allows us to
Okay.
make any decisions based off of that voice.
All right, so where do we go from here? Do you want to initiate this stuff this
I
month?
will,
And then,
I'm happy to do that, I
Okay.
just basically need to know what specifically,
yeah,
you know, what information do you want to start with specifically? Cause it may change 2 months down the road. And we can have people think about that, and discuss it next meeting.
I think that would be a good idea. And then there might be some other information in that survey that you're gonna provide to us that stimulate some thinking too. So I don't think anybody's really prepared to give any
No,
specific
and Ronnie,
ideas
maybe you and I
today,
can
so,
sit down and
Right.
talk about
Identifying those and then,
quantitative specifics
right,
and make some recommendations
and
to
then
the
bring
board.
that back to the board on
Right.
in February.
All right.
Great.
okay, well, we'll put that on the agenda for next time, and then we'll proceed from there. All right, any other comments on that? Okay, meeting dates, time, and location. Is this for our group?
Yes, this is a formal thing that the clerk's office asks us to do every year, that we will need a motion that, number one, states the location of where the meetings will be held, and a second motion that would say the day of the month and the time.
Okay. And confirm where meeting notices are posted?
They're two separate things.
Do we need two separate motions
Yes.
for that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, is there any reason we wouldn't have it on the first Wednesday of each month here at 10 o'clock?
I think we should.
Okay, well, let's have a motion then that, so that,
I move we continue meeting at the same time and place
10 o'clock, first Wednesday of the month,
and date.
and at this location. All right, there's been a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, second, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Okay.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion passed. Confirm where meeting notices are posted. Let's have a motion on that, where they should be posted.
Primarily, it's done on the city website, but I think the board has chosen to post a paper agenda here at the senior center, and we can post it wherever else you'd like to do that. I think at the civic center would be another good location.
So, once the agenda has been established, your staff posts it, is that what
Yes.
you've been doing?
Yeah.
It's listed on the back of the agenda, 4 places. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right, let's have a motion, if everybody's okay with that, let's have a motion.
So moved.
Art makes a motion to confirm where the meeting notices are posted, is there a second?
I second.
A second?
So that motion is to keep it as
As
it
it
is.
is.
Okay, right,
Does Robin usually post those, Brandon?
yes. She has that.
Here in the building.
In the building,
And
in
then
the
we-
clerk's office.
Yeah, and then we mail the agenda to those other locations, and the clerk or somebody posts those for us.
Let's see, did you second it?
Yes,
Okay.
Janine seconded that.
And then, okay, all those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Motion passes. Assignment of representatives to outside agencies. Actually, is this a requirement, you do this every year?
Mhm.
I believe the
Yeah, I
board
think we
does
do
do
that,
that
yeah.
every year.
Okay,
Yeah,
Sheila had emailed that she would like to be the representative
saw
to the
that.
Friends
yeah.
Board.
Well, let's see,
Do we have to make a motion for that?
What
No, I don't
I
think,
approve, you know.
we could, if everybody's okay with just leaving it the way it is, you could make a motion saying that we'll do that.
Except that Sheila is replacing Susan, who's off.
Right.
mhm.
Yeah, well, couldn't we put her down as a representative?
Yes.
Yeah, and
She
she was
was
the
backup.
alternate anyway.
Right, yeah, right. Do we need an alternate to Sheila then? I guess we can do that next time. Do we have to have an alternate?
Can you do it as it comes up?
Yeah, we can do that.
Well, and for the Friends meetings, the manager is always at those meetings,
Oh,
so
okay.
the manager can always
All right.
report into, I think, if she was
Okay,
absent.
so just to go through these, Janine is area agency rep. Sheila will be the Friends rep.
Are you okay staying that, Janine?
Yes.
Okay, and Art will be the Latino rep. Economic development, that's been you, Janine, has it not?
Well, no.
No? Oh,
It's been me for the
Oh.
last year,
And
but
I'm trying to track down when that
Yeah,
meeting
Jeff,
is, so,
I'm trying to
okay,
figure
do
that out.
you, do you wanna continue?
Yeah, that's fine.
okay,
Okay.
I'll stay
in
as long
touch
as,
with you.
somebody figures it
Okay.
out.
Is that the LEDP?
Yep.
Yeah, okay,
Okay.
so their CEO resigned, so they're in a little bit of disarray.
Yeah.
Who would be,
I haven't figured that part out, who the next person is.
well, we
Maybe-
don't know who the next.
Yes,
It's
no,
been a year
but,
since we've been
acting.
trying.
Yeah,
Yeah, oh, I
Maybe
know who
Joni
the
would.
active
Do you?
person is. Yes, it's Stephanie Pitts Noggle. Let me email you.
Oh, okay,
And Julie, right? Okay.
well, I think Jeff,
yep, I'll get
Jeff,
back to
you
you.
figure it out,
Yep.
and you keep me out of it until
Yep.
it's figured
Okay.
out, yeah.
Okay,
We don't need to confuse anybody.
okay, sustainability implementation, anybody wanna fight me for it?
No, but I would like to be your backup.
Okay,
That's one that anybody can go to, by the way.
yeah,
It's open to the public.
they're very interesting meetings, I tell you, I think. All right, engaging care communities,
That was Susan and I am willing to remain on that. I mean, right now it's only a whenever they get together thing.
so you had two on the
They
committee?
had both Susan and I initially. And we have not been called upon for several months, but if someone would like to be a part of that, then let me know and I
Is there-
can.
Is there anybody here that would wanna volunteer for the
Can you
engaging
explain
care?
a little bit about what's involved in that?
It is a committee that is, or a group of people that have wide range experiences within the community, and it was brought together to develop an online information program that is being developed by people associated with the University of Colorado. And I mean, it initially was deciding what format, and it went from there to, you know, developing a website. It got very technical after a while, but if they had specific questions, you know, our input about confidentiality, for me, my input about what medical things should be asked and what would be appropriate. It was a developmental thing that was actually being, I guess, organized by our city manager. And it's still in the developmental phase. And I don't know how Susan and I got invited to participate.
And I think they're in the process of actually contracting to write the website now. And so
Yeah.
it's pretty much, so if I were a user of, so for example, the senior center system, and then I had a grandchild that was being seen at the youth center, and maybe I accessed another agency. It was so that I could opt into this system, so that then the people that I was working with could talk to each other and could better coordinate kind of how they could support me. And so there was a lot, like you said, a lot of discussions about confidentiality, about, you know, should medical information be included in there? What does it mean to opt into a system? We found that, and this kind of started with the fire department, and them responding repeatedly to some of the same individuals, and just it really just is about coordinating care. And so how we were going to do that. But it's my understanding from talking to Eliberto is that we might be in the process of contracting now to actually get the framework of the website written after all of that
Right.
input that was given.
So currently I couldn't Google engaging caring communities.
No.
and have
No,
something-
it might, something on the website, something on the city website might come up, but we don't have the actual user website.
Yeah, it's
We're in that process.
completely developmental at this point.
Yeah.
And it's much more putting the program together. And a couple of the members actually have passed away. So I'm not sure what the status of it is now, but
So
This
does
was
it,
in-person meeting? Or
no, it's
is
all
it-
done
it's all
by
taken.
Zoom.
okay, do you wanna be part of that? Or anybody wanna be with Janine? All right,
Who's
I guess-
Susan? You mentioned Susan.
She was a past.
She was our
Past
past
president.
president.
Oh, she's
and
not
was
on the board any longer.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Do they need two representatives attending?
You know, I wish I could tell you, Art, I don't even know, because I don't know how I ended up being asked. I don't know if it was through the senior center or what.
I think it
assume
was, it
It
was
was
Michelle, it was
Michelle.
it
Michelle.
probably was,
And-
because both Susan and I ended up on
Yeah.
that, and
And at this point, if they're not really doing anymore, since they're working on the website, then realistically, we probably only need Janine, and that's it.
Okay.
There
Right,
may
I'm
not be
thinking
any
that there
call.
probably would be feedback later. That's what they
Yeah.
asked each of the division managers to do, is to have like users of our services come and give us feedback. And so, so that's probably how you were.
yeah, they
involved.
have to put it together in
Mhm.
order for us to really identify areas. I mean, the biggest area of concern involved around confidentiality.
Right, and
And
right,
being on a public website.
right.
So, but you can't make any comments about that until the system is presented.
And it looks like there is a PDF on the city's website that talks about enabling caring communities. It's out of the University of Colorado, Anschutz. The Don was,
I don't remember
Don
Don's
Neese.
name. Don Neese,
yeah. So there's actually a good PDF there if you wanna.
Okay,
Yeah, I would go ahead.
you good, we'll join Janine, okay? All right, any reports this time? Do we need a motion on this membership?
No.
Okay.
What about
I'm sorry?
E? Discuss 2023 goals and suggestions for agenda items.
I'm not quite done with this, so,
Oh, I'm sorry.
any reports?
Do you mean reports about those
I'm sorry,
groups?
of the, area aging friends,
No, my meeting is on Friday, so I'm always a month behind with them because they're 2
Okay.
days after we meet.
the former and the present friends are both gone, so.
I told Susan I would report in.
Oh,
Um,
okay,
Friends, really mostly what we ended up talking about in December were financial things and budget. They are gonna meet at the end of January and approve a 2023 budget. It is much the same as the prior year's budget, with just a few increases. The total is $182,000 of support that the Friends are looking at giving the senior center this year, which includes everything from $52,000 for funding part of 2 staff positions, to marketing funds, printing costs, volunteer support, our last resort. It is a great deal of support that they are looking at continuing to give us here.
well,
And they reviewed donations from Colorado Gives. They got $5,528 from Colorado Gives donations in November, December, or I guess maybe just December. There's no other major updates from Friends.
so the staff positions are they're funded by the city, but this is contribute, no?
So about 3/4 of 2 staff positions are funded by the city, and the city has not agreed to move the rest of that funding into the general fund. So the recreation funding here was paying for 1/4 of our marketer's position. The recreation funds can't sustain that if we're gonna hire more recreation staff, which we really need to do. So the Friends have agreed to take it on, and the city actually lowered it to 19.5% of that position and would be funded somehow not by the general fund. So the Friends are gonna vote on that in January, but have agreed that they'll take that on. And 1/4 of Melissa Locino's resource specialist position here has been funded by the Friends the entire time she's worked here. Which is going on 3 years. We just haven't been able to get the city to pick that money up and fund it out of the general fund yet. And we
So
keep
that-
asking
A
every year.
little project of ours too, wouldn't it?
That would be great. We
I
ask,
timed that right.
Did you?
Sorry.
we ask every
You wanna
year.
say something?
I will say it is not the Friends' intention to permanently fund staff positions. That's
Yeah.
never
I
been
can
It
their
makes
intention.
it
understand.
difficult when you are funding staff positions for the city to, fund it full-time.
Because they're like, why not? The Friends will do it. The Friends are like, but our intention was never to do this forever. It was just to get it started.
I don't wanna belabor it, we are
I have
running
a
out of
Good
time.
lesson.
question on that, about the donations that they've had. Are they still coming in as they have been in the past, do you know?
You mean overall donations? We don't have final numbers. It was looking like 56,000, I think, total donations for the year. And I don't know a comparison to prior years, but we can find that out.
I mean, they've been pretty healthy
Yeah.
in a budget, and I'm just wondering if, with everything going on, the pandemic and everything else, if they're not getting the donations. I'm on another committee where donations are not coming in at all like they used to.
I wonder
can
how
check
that
on that.
compares with the Friends of the Library. That would be an interesting thing to know.
Well, that's something, it's not appropriate for this discussion, I don't think, but I think that's something I'd like to pursue as far as what can we do maybe to get some additional funding there. I've been through that many times, so I know kind of how it works, so we'll talk some more.
This might be an area that you send feedback to council on.
Have we sent any feedback before on positions?
Not on positions that I can recall. The staff comes up with a budget and it goes through the budget sieve, whatever that is. So it's actually, the council making a big recommendation about where money goes is fairly rare because the staff figures all out what they want, and then the council has to really stand on its hind legs to change any of it.
Well, who makes the decision as far as allocation of staffing funds?
City council does.
But when it gets down to the department, who does?
City council does.
Oh, you're done?
So I'm lying to you.
Can I share an observation from the budget process this year? So the budget starts with the department, everybody in their different divisions puts together what they would like to
right.
get in the budget for the next year. It goes through the administration with the city, so folks from finance, our city manager, then it moves to council. I feel like there's places for input all along the way there, and I observed at a council meeting about the budget, council asking, why do we see nothing here about pickleball courts? Because people had come to council all year long and said, we need more pickleball courts. So what I observed was that the public speaking about a need got through to council.
Gets through the
Okay,
council.
but it's a done, by the time it gets to council, the budget recommendation to council is a done deal.
Yes, so essentially what happens, it's perceived by the council as a done deal. And what happens is it's really rolled up by the time that it goes to council. So we don't see the pencils and paper clips at all. We do see new full-time equivalent funded positions, and that's about as fine-grained as it gets. And then, as I said, while the council is, the hope from the staff, I believe, is that the council just approves everything that, as recommended. The council has to really get on its hind legs to make changes to the budget. It happens. Usually the more likely thing that happens is a council member will question the reasoning. There's a little more transparency. The staff, the responsible portion of the staff opens things up, and the council generally agrees. So, yeah, the council, nothing can be funded without council approval, but the decision-making process, the council is the last. So I don't want to, I don't want it to seem like Jeff and I are contradicting each other.
Yeah, no, I get it.
And I would envision that the survey that you're talking about could be part of, if anything comes up from that, could be part of what Ronnie would bring forward to in budget requests for that year as well, and you have some good data about that. So you have 300 people, 500 people that filled out this survey, and they were all saying they wanted pickleball courts. So what does that budget request look like?
All right, let's see. I guess we're done with that. Discuss 2023 goals and suggestions for agenda items.
Didn't Michelle always have with our agenda the list of items that we were focusing on?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We did.
They were.
Yeah,
Am I not seeing
there
it?
is that too.
Could it be the upcoming agenda?
Oh, okay, yeah, I think
Well,
that.
but you were talking about areas within the operation we were gonna focus on.
Mhm.
Isn't that what you're talking about?
Yes, I feel like there was.
But there was a section on,
Yes, there was a section where we used to have, these are the things that we're focusing on for the year.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's the upcoming agenda items.
okay, let's see. Okay, we're running out of time too.
And this will wait, we can talk about this.
I was going to suggest, that's a big enough item, so maybe we should leave that until next week, or next month rather. On the goals, I think we could put the goals, is that okay with everybody? We throw the goals in, like we did last time,
Yes.
and refresh our memories and how we're going to approach that, because I don't think we did much that I remember. I didn't.
Yeah.
So.
And then one question I do have in terms of goals is that I know at one point in time, we had all been discussing about what services we wanted to see here. One of them was foot care. Have we gotten that figured out?
No one applied when they opened the RFP last 2022. So that needs to be reposted as a new RFP this year.
I'm sorry, what RFP was that? Was that for the toenails?
Foot care.
Yeah, for foot care.
Yeah, I shouldn't say.
What?
That's
It
what
is
it
toenails.
It's toenails.
It is.
I'm writing it down.
There was a time when I thought that was the most ridiculous thing I ever heard in my life. However.
It's an aging thing.
Something,
Yeah.
yes.
Brandy, I mean, maybe it's just nobody outside the senior center thinks it's important, but I wonder if it might be a liability thing, so like if you go to a private nail salon and you're an overweight senior, they say, "Are you diabetic?" And they'll say no. If some of them will say no if you say you're diabetic, because they don't want the liability of potentially wounding you and it won't heal. And so my question is, if the city, which is self-insured through Kaiser, put in the RFP that there might be some liability coverage associated with the post, that might change responses.
I don't know if it was, I was not involved in the RFP,
Okay.
so I don't know.
No,
if
I'm
that was
just
part of it or not.
throwing that out as a suggestion if you wanna try again.
Because
That
if
could
it's
have been.
private, that would be into consideration. Before, it was always done through the hospital, through Longmont United, and when that went away, it ended. And if neither of, well, I know that with UC Health, they have an outpatient clinic, so they were very happy for us to refer people to their outpatient clinic, but they didn't want to come here. So that was one of the issues. And then the other issue, that if it's an independent person, they will definitely have to be covered by
Somebody.
liability, because they can't come in and do care without liability insurance. And then the third recommendation, in terms of if no response to the PDF, would be, I wonder if outreach to any of the in-town podiatrist offices might be helpful.
It was actually a home care agency who covered the need after the hospital.
After the hospital
Yeah.
pulled out.
So it might be that there's an option there too, because there's a lot of home care agencies.
Yeah, I mean, it needs to be looked at and
I know,
what was submitted.
I know Michelle was kinda cool on the whole, on foot care, wasn't she?
No, I think she was.
No,
pro.
She
It's a
really
need.
wanted
Yeah.
it.
Really?
She really, it was well attended here,
Well,
especially for our diabetic patients.
I think it was just
Fine.
something
Yes,
that
sir.
kind of ended up on
Yes,
the
sir.
back burner.
Yeah,
Okay, well, I would suggest maybe, how does this sound, we put it on the agenda and either do it or not, kill it. Yep, just proceed with an RFP or just forget about it, because it's been floating along on the agenda for months.
No, a year or more.
So I wanna say it was posted last spring and they closed it in June, I believe, because no one had
Yeah.
applied.
But I like what Marcia said about adding the fact that no liability.
Well,
We would
or
just need
the
to
opposite,
get
having the
Rista.
city budget for
Yeah.
liability, so that it's part
Of
of,
it.
yeah.
Well,
well,
let's,
Ronnie, I'd really like to see what the senior center staff and think about that. What do they think about the need? You know,
We see a need.
do
I-
you see a need?
Yes.
And if you see a need, then, you know, as a board member, I'd support continuing to look for somebody in
So-
some way.
So that means reposting then.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Right.
Dave, are
Joel?
you suggesting putting that on one of our goals for the year to get it finished and done?
I guess we could do it that way, yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But
Get
I
it
think
done.
that's important, is to
Like
just get it
it's been
finished
on the
and
agenda
done.
ever since I've been on this board. You know,
Yeah.
So, let's just do it or forget about it.
I would like to see one of are we done with feet?
I guess so. Or no.
I would really like to see something about our registration as a goal. We've talked about this off and on for over a year. I'm still frustrated with it. And what I'd specifically like to see, and this would also include city rec totally, is when you go online to register for something, I mean, when you go to the Go and you find a class and you're online and you would like to register for a class, why can you not click that registration number and be done? Why do you have to go through all this big process trying to register for a class?
So let's have that on the agenda. Staff has met after the board talked about that last time. Robin is working on some how-tos to help with
Is
that.
that our tech person?
No, but she's the admin here.
She's the registration
Yeah.
guru.
Oh.
But, so we don't have a tech person that really helps us with the front end stuff, the people facing thing. Our ETS helps with the back part of it. But, we have some things we're working on that we're hoping will help with that. The system doesn't allow it to be done like you just described. That system does not exist. So I'll have Sue Ellen come to the next meeting along with Robin and share with you what we're looking at to try to make that better.
Okay, so this
That
is,
goes to the museum too, by the way.
I mean, it's
Citywide.
for all the
Well-
programs, not just us.
Yeah,
So I think,
But-
didn't we have a meeting with,
yes, you did.
yeah, and were you a part of that meeting?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think that, you know, making changes is needed, however, the system that the city owns or subscribes to
Licenses.
cannot be fixed to function the way that we want it to.
And this
But
is
this
how
is
we
all a
keep it
continuation of our last discussion, where
This is huge.
everybody
This
was
is huge.
kind of
Yes.
dissatisfied
It's
with it.
huge.
You said you were going to come back.
Yep.
And you'll come back
Yep.
next meeting and report on what we need to do.
And I would like to add that, it is actually not true that there is no solution. There is no solution that the city is willing to invest in.
At this time.
Yeah, on a software architect from back in the
That's
day.
the root of the problem.
Maybe that's
Yes.
another recommendation.
The challenge we're finding is that there isn't anything any better out there that works to do all of the things that the city needs to do, whether it's registration, reservations, a website type of thing. So we've heard you, and we are trying to find ways to make it better within the system we currently have.
Are the IT staff that you have, are they city employees? Are they contracted?
No, they're city employees. The challenge is it's a canned program, so the city can't go in and make changes to make it better. And so you have to work within the software that they provide you, and they do limited improvements each year because every community is making other types of recommendations as well, and they prioritize which has the biggest impact to the most number of communities.
Okay, that'll be on the agenda for
Yes.
next week.
Who goes
And
out
next
and
month.
researches what's out there besides the one you have?
All right, we're running,
I'm just curious.
Well,
Are
nobody,
we
because
late?
we don't have the money to do it anyway.
can we, okay, briefly, can we have a supervisor's report, or have we done that already?
I'll say we've had more staff changes since the last meeting. Our recreation supervisor, Jamie, has left the organization.
Oh.
So we have to rehire that position. We also have 2 new recreation positions we're gonna be hiring this year, so hopefully those will get posted soon. Our LHA resource specialist, Melinda, is leaving next week, is her last week. So we're down another position there.
And what's her?
The Longmont Housing Authority resource specialist. The resource specialist who only works at 3 Longmont Housing Authority properties. Her last day is next Friday. And another one of our resource specialists is just gonna be out on leave for much of the next 2.5 months. So our whole staff is a little taxed. Welcome to senior services, Rhonda. We got one
We're
new
all
one.
taxed.
We got one new one, so it's like up and down.
I want to end this on a positive note, and I want to do it without tears. A life was saved here 3 weeks ago. A life was saved because people care and clients trust. And I want you to know that because it's extraordinary. And because I went to visit a gentleman yesterday who is here and back in his community because he trusted coming to the senior center. He'd get help, and he did.
Thank you.
That's really great news.
I think the only thing we haven't really covered, the public invite, there's nobody from the public here, so. And the upcoming agenda items and the goals we deferred till next week, so is there any further city liaison report?
Yes, just briefly, there hasn't been a council meeting for 2 weeks, and I haven't gone into the next one, I'm not even sure it's posted yet. There will be a council meeting next Tuesday, but on January 11th, at the council chambers, that's a Wednesday, there is It's going to be a really interesting event. Our executive director of strategic integration, Becky Doyle, who is just a marvelous human being and the smartest person in the city, it went to the Bloomberg City Lab Summit in the Netherlands in November, and she has put together a sort of a report of, you know, what we can take away from this and apply to Longmont. And she's gonna have a panel discussion from sustainability and another panel discussion from people in our arts community. So Elliot Moore, the conductor of the Symphony Orchestra, is going to be there. I'm a parks and recreation designer, retired now from the city. Many of you may know Paula Fitzgerald, and a street artist yet to be confirmed. You know, so it's going to be wonderful variety of people to meet. And again, 7 p.m. September 11th. January 11th on Wednesday. I'd like you to be there, invite all your friends. You can register on the Longmont Public Media website or on the City Communications website. And that's all.
Be downtown.
It's gonna be at the council chambers. So, yeah.
I'd love to, I'm gonna be in Maui, however.
Oh, poor guy.
That's a tough gig.
Yeah, tell your friends.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
I'm working on the 2022 annual report, and they're looking back at 2021 is a list of board highlights from the year and goals for the year. And I don't really know how to get this information other than going through old advisory board agendas and minutes. Can I send, maybe not you, Beth, since you weren't here, but the folks who were on the board this year, can I send you what I compile and have
Yes.
you give edits?
Sure.
Because I feel certain I'm gonna miss things.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great. All right, is there any other business? I have a hard time ending meetings sometimes. Okay,
This
is
is
there a
close.
motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Art moves, second. Okay, second, discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right,